I'm going to explain about user management commands. In user management, you can create user, delete user, and assign password for the user accounts. For the normal user, the user can change his password but cannot access the other user account information. The account creation deletion process can be only done by the root user. To create a new user account, you can use the following command: user add, and then the username. Now the user one account is created. After creating the user account, the home directory for the user is created under this directory /home, and the username at which the user is created. This is the home directory for the user one. The three hidden files in the home directory is the environmental variables which is used for the user session. After creating the user account, the mails pool is created for the specific user which is under the directory var spool mail. The mails pool is created for the user account user one. And when creating the new user account, a group is also created for the user in the same name. To view the groups, use the etc group. The group for the user one is now created. To set the password for the user account, use the following command: password, then the username. Now the password is set for the user account user one. To log into a user account, use su hyphen then the username. To change a password for the user account, just type password and you can change the password for the user account user one. You need to enter the current password and now the new password. Now the password has been changed for the user one. To delete a user account, use the following command: user del hyphen r then the username. Hyphen r is used to delete the user along with its home directory, mails pool and the other information related to the user account. The user one is removed. All the user account information is stored in the etc password file, which is the path is etc password. The etc password file has 7 fields in it. The first field indicates the username. The second field indicates the link to the etc shadow file, which has the encrypted passwords of the user. The third field indicates the user ID. The fourth field is the group ID of the user. The fifth field indicates the comments about the user's home directory. The sixth field is the path to the home directory of the user. And the last and seventh field is the user's parent shell, which is bin bash. The password information for the user accounts are stored in etc shadow file. It is in encrypted format. The path is etc shadow. The etc shadow file has 8 fields in it. The first field indicates the username. The second field indicates the encrypted password or for the user account. The third field indicates the date in which the user changes password last time. The fourth field indicates the minimum number of days after which the user can change his password. And the fifth field indicates the password validity information, the number of days in which the user password expires. The sixth field indicates the warning alert before the password expiration. It indicates the number of days for the warning alert before the password expiration. The seventh field indicates the number of days. If the user does not change his password after expiration, the account will be disabled. The number of days is not mentioned here for the user. The last field in the eighth field is the expiry date for the user account. The expiry date is also not assigned to the user account, user 1. There are two types of groups in Linux. One is primary group and the second one is secondary group. To create a new group, use the following command: group add, and then the group name. Now the group 1 is created. To add a new user to a group primary, that's a primary group. To add a user to a primary group, use the following command: usermod. Before adding, I'm going to execute the id command for displaying the id of the user. To add a user to the primary group, use the following command: usermod -g, then the group name, then the username. Now the user 1 is added to the primary group, group 1. Before adding the user 1 to the primary group, the ID of the user is 500. But now after adding the user to the primary group, it is changed to 502, which is the ID of the group 1. And the default group ID of the user is now replaced with the primary group ID, which is 502. To add a user to a secondary group, use the following command: user mod hyphen capital G, then the group name, then the username. Now the user2 is added to the group2. And before adding the user2 to the group, the ID of the user2 is 501. After adding the user to the secondary group, it is added along with its default group, which is 501, and the new group's secondary group 503. The group information are stored in the location etc group. The etc group file has 4 fields in it. First is the group name, and second is the password for the group, which is not set. And the third is the group ID, and fourth is the members of the group. The user2 is a member of the group2. To delete a group, use the following command: group del, then the group name. Now the group2 is removed. After creating the user accounts, if we need to change the user account information, you can use the user mode commands. To set the expiry date for the user account, you can use the following command: user mode hyphen expiry date. Then mention the date. And then the username. You need to set the expiry date. Now the expiry date is set for the user1. The expire date should be mentioned here. It is not expiry, not Y. That is E, expire date. Now the expiry date is set for the user1. To change the user's default home directory to some other location, you can use the following command: user mode home, and specify the new path for the user's home directory. And mention the username. Now the user's home directory user1 is now changed to the path home user1 desktop. To disable a user account, you can lock the password for the user account. To lock the user account password, use the following command: usermod -lock, then the username. Now the user one is disabled. Now we can't enter the user account user one. To unlock the user password, use the following command: usermod -unlock, then the username. Now the user's password is now unlocked. You can see the modification done for the user account in the etc shadow file. The expiry date for the user is now set. To check the home directory of the user, go to the path etc password. Now the home directory for the user one is changed to home user one and desktop. In Linux, each file and directory will have the permissions for it. Here the D indicates the directory and the hyphen indicates the file. There are three types of permission classes in Linux. This is user, group, and others. Now let's look at these permissions. The first three indicates the permissions for the user, and the next three for the group, and the last three for the others. The user class is the owner of the file, and the next class is the group, which is the members of the files group belong to this class. In others class, the users that does not belong to the user and the group class belongs to this group. There are three permissions, which is read, write, and execute. R is read, W is write, and X for execute. If file is with a read permission, the user can read the contents of the file. Let the view the contents of the file. And if a directory is given a read permission, user can view the contents of the directory, can list the files of the directory with the read permission. If the write permission is given for the directory or a file, the user can modify it, delete it, and can rename the files. And if the execute permission is given for a file, the user can execute the file, but the file has to be, the user should have a read permission along with the execute permission to execute the file. There are three special permissions in Linux, which is set UID, set GID, and sticky bit. To execute the set UID permission, use the following command. chmod -r test u+s for setting the UID permission. And the file or directory we need to set -r is for recursive. If -r is used, the same permissions will be applied to its subdirectories of the directory you're going to apply. If a special permission is set, S will be added to the permissions. Now the subdirectories content will also get the same permission as the parent directory. To set GID special permission for the file or directory, use the following command. chmod g+s, then the directory name we need to apply. Now the special permission set for the directory new. You need to use -r to apply the permissions for the subdirectories you're going to set. Now the same permissions will be applied to the subdirectories of the directory new. The same permissions have been set for the subdirectories. If the g+s permission is set for the file or directory, the same group ownership will be created if a new file or directory is created in that directory, which has a special permission. To set sticky bit permission for a file or directory, use the following command. chmod o+t, in the directory or a file name you are going to set. Use -r for applying the permissions for the subdirectories. After the sticky bit permission is set, a T will be displayed in the file or folder you are going to set. The files or directories with the sticky bit permission can be deleted only by the owner of the file or the root user. Only these two can delete the files or directories with the sticky bit permission. To create a user account with no login, use the following command: user add -s, then space /sbin /no login, then the username we're going to create. You should be a root user to execute the command. User add -s /sbin /no login, then the username. Now the user 3 is created with no user login. There is another way to create a user with no login or modify the user with no login. For that, go to the etc password file and edit the user details. You need to change the user's parent shell. The default parent shell is bin bash. You need to change it to sbin no login to create the user account with no login. Thank you.